Welcome to the MFA on the occasion of the press conference of Austrian Foreign Minister Schallenberg and Hungarian Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó. Minister Schallenberg.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, dear Peter. It's good to have you here. We just spent half of the day yesterday together, so you might have thought that we have seen enough of each other, but that's not the case. and thank you here again for your hospitality yesterday, for making this part of C5, for making this work and carrying it on. And we both know that we are sailing through rough waters, and that we just had, sorry for keeping you waiting, because we had a couple of topics we have to talk about. But especially in these times, after 2 years of pandemic, and now we have war back in Europe, cooperation, personal contacts, talking, exchange, especially in the neighborhood and in Central Europe, which is always affected by any crisis on this continent, is always Central Europe that is most affected, is extremely important. And yes, the relations between Austria and Hungary go way back in history. They're strong, they're multi-layered, and we just attended, both of us, the opening of the Ringturm by an Hungarian artist, Dora Maura, and also economic and trade ties are extremely strong. Austria is your third biggest trading partner, your third biggest investor. You're for us the seventh largest export partner. And trade has picked up after the pandemic. If my numbers are correct, last year our exports to Hungary increased by 24% and our imports from Hungary by 22%. So there is a very interesting and close economic relation. Over 1,400 companies, Austrian companies, are present in Hungary and providing or safeguarding 70,000 jobs, which is not a small number. And as I said at the beginning, any talk that takes place today between two foreign ministers, I would say not only in Europe but also outside of Europe, is influenced and under the shadow of the war of aggression of Russia against Ukraine. And the meeting yesterday of the C5 proved that we have to talk with each other. We have issues at stake concerning energy security, energy supply. We have issues at stake concerning the sanction policies, where we have to talk, we have to take into consideration that countries have different positions. Yes, to make it very clear, we have to reduce our dependency on Russia as far as energy supply is concerned, and we have to do it quickly. But it won't be overnight, and we have to continue the phasing out of fossil fuels. And it is no secret that neighborhood and closeness brings also issues at hand where we might not be seeing, or we might not be on the same page, an eye to eye. One of those I mentioned yesterday is nuclear energy, for instance. If I say that phasing out of fossil fuels, this is an area where Austria has a very strong and, for you, probably not surprising stance. But there are other issues where we stand together and we see eye to eye and we are on the same page. And one of them is that yes, we have war in Europe, yes, we have war in Ukraine, that's the theater of war, but we have to be aware that Russia has the possibility to be a destabilizing factor beyond Ukraine. We have to look at Transnistria, but also at the Western Balkans. We have to look at Mali. We have to look at Libya. And for us, the other neighborhood are the Western Balkans, the 6 states of Western Balkans. And yesterday we agreed, for instance, on a common Central 5 letter being sent to the institutions on Bosnia-Herzegovina, where we expect and hope for positive steps by the end of the year. And I hope that we will have now decisive and positive steps on North Macedonia and Albania. And we have to be aware that the biggest geopolitical tool we have at our disposal as European Union is the enlargement, is EU's perspective. That is not a bureaucratic, legalistic process. It's a geostrategic tool. And it's very easy. It's either our model of life, our values, our system that prevails, or it might be faced in the immediate neighborhood, in a region which is surrounded by EU member states, by other values, by another model of life. And I believe there we have the same kind of approach, and we are both Hungary and Austria of the opinion that we cannot embark on a geostrategic tunnel vision, if I might say so. So, welcome again in Vienna. Thanks for the good exchange, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Minister Szijjártó.
Thank you very much for the very kind hospitality, dear Alexander. Thank you very much for inviting me here today. We are meeting when the European continent has to go through a critical period of time. We have been faced with very serious challenges regarding our security, be it the physical, economic, or energy supply. Hungary, on top of that, is in a special situation. We Hungarians are under double pressure since we have been faced with the crisis of refugees from the east. We have received more than 830,000 refugees from Ukraine so far. We would like to express our respect to Austria as well to host those who end up in Austria. And we, of course, supply all of them. We give them everything what they need in order to be able to start a new life. And we let all of them enter Hungary. But in the meantime, we are confronted with a massive wave of illegal migration from the south. Our southern border is under siege. And when I say that southern border is under siege, that might sound as an exaggeration, but believe me, it is not. And I have two reasons why this is not an exaggeration. First, because the migrants are behaving in such an aggressive and violent way because they are being equipped with weapons. And they are not shy of using those weapons. They shoot on each other, as it happened just very recently, killing at least one person. And they are threatening the Hungarian border police with their weapons as well. They are not shy of throwing stones, pieces of concrete, and other objects on the Hungarian border guards. And I have to tell you that the other reason why I can say we are under siege is that we had to stop more than 120,000 illegal migrants already this year. 120,000, which is 2.5 times more compared to the same period of time last year. And I have to tell you that these people have have no reason to come to Hungary, and we have no reason to let them come in. These people are aggressive. These people are violating the international law. International law does not allow to anyone to cross a border illegally between two safe and peaceful countries. And we have to make it sure that violating our borders is a crime. And the crime must be addressed properly. The problem is that the migration policy of Brussels is pretty much pro-migration and inspiring those who are violating our borders and inspiring those who are helping the migrants to violate our borders, namely the smugglers. In Hungary, we do consider illegal migration as a security threat. That's why we are organizing new units of border guards in order to make sure that no one is allowed to come in who doesn't have the right to come in. And with this, we do not only protect Hungary, but we do protect the European Union, we do protect our immediate neighbor Austria, and we do appreciate that we have a common point here to fight against illegal migration and to make it very clear that obligatory resettlement quotas are beyond the red line. And we will continue this fight of ours, although I have to tell you that it's pretty unfair that we have received only 2% of the costs we had to spend to protect our border from the European Union so far. Alexander was kind enough to mention our economic cooperation, which we cherish. We cherish the investing community of Austrian companies in Hungary, who form the second largest investment group. We cherish the fact that Austria is our third most important trading partner. Trade did hit huge record last year, which amounted to more than 12 billion euros. This year we already had a 50% increase. So meeting your Minister of Economy, we agreed to continue this tight cooperation. And of course, when it comes to the war in Ukraine, we have discussed the issue of the sanctions. And here we are rowing in the same boat from the perspective of being dependent on Russian gas. Alexander made it very right yesterday in Budapest that this is not because we would have this kind of desire, This is a fact. Infrastructure and geography determine. And we have to respect this fact, and we have to put our national interest as first in this regard to ensure the safe supply of gas for both of our countries. In Hungary, we definitely made it very clear that we are not even ready to negotiate about any kind of sanctions on gas deliveries. And we made it very clear that we would never vote in favor of a sanction list which would include either Gazprom or the Gazprom Bank. We made very clear position about the war, but we also made it very clear that we will never allow the Hungarian people to be forced to pay for the price of the war. I'd like to express once again my appreciation to Alexander personally himself for the continued friendship I definitely do cherish, and we in Hungary are ready to continue this very effective Zusammenarbeit we had so far. And we definitely do enjoy.
Thank you very much, Ministers. We have time for some questions. I think, Frau Hilpert, bitte. Josef? Oder?
It's coming.
Da kommt's. Ja, für die Kamera.
The big one.
Thank you very much for giving German TV ZDF the first question. Britta Hilpert from ZDF. Mr. Szijjártó, I would like to ask you, to what extent do you think sanctions prolong or shorten the war? And to what extent do the sanctions contribute or even are they solely the only reason for the inflation Hungary is facing now?
You collect or we have to?
No, just answer right away. Yes,
okay, thank you very much. So in Hungary, unfortunately, we are very heavily impacted by the war since we are neighbors. I understand you are not in a position to imagine that since you are a little bit further away, but we are neighbors. And if you have a war in the neighboring country that puts a huge security risk on you and a huge burden on your economy and your energy supply as well. A big reason of the high inflation environment in Hungary is the war itself and the sanctions which have been imposed by the European Union. We do believe that, that now we should concentrate on peace. Because if you raise the question, what offers the solution for all of these problems we had to be faced with, then in our understanding it's obvious that peace can offer a solution for all the problems we are having now. And I think it would be high time to concentrate on how we make peace. We have negotiated a lot about sanctions. We have made a lot of decisions on sanctions. The war is being intensified in the meantime. So let's make peace. This is our policy. And this has been our policy since the very beginning of the war. As a neighboring country, we are impacted very, very seriously.
So I didn't understand. Do they extend the war or shorten it?
I made a clear answer, I think.
Thank you. Einmal, die APA war noch genau.
Seinem, Austria Press Agency. Mr. Szijjártó, what will be your government's position regarding the federal presidential election in Austria? And do you hope that candidate Rosenkranz from the Freedom Party will be elected? And Mr. Schallenberg, do you find it difficult to hide your preferences for Alexander von der Bellen? Thank you.
I mean, there's a clear position from the Christian Democratic Party, and I think it's interesting to ask a foreign minister of another country whether he has preferences in a national election, but that, I mean, okay.
Well, you know, I base my foreign policy on a principle, my foreign policy strategy on a principle, which is mutual respect. Mutual respect means, in my perspective, that we do not interfere into domestic issues of other countries, and as an exchange, we expect others not to do either. Now you can raise the question with a good reason, are we satisfied with the reciprocity of this strategy of ours, generally speaking? That would be another question. But what I can tell you is that since we are not Austrians, we are not having a preference. But what I can assure you about is that we will respect the outcome of the election here in Austria, and we will be honored to work together with the president who is elected by the Austrian citizens. And I really do hope that concerns and challenging democratic elections of other countries will not be part of European politics in the future. I hope that.
Thank you. Two more quick questions, Puls 24 und Herr Löwenstein.
Micro.
If the EU is deciding in autumn to split gas between the EU member states because the situation is going to be so critical, are you willing to share gas with the EU states, even though you have an export stop? Some people already would say Hungary is missing, they're missing solidarity. Thank you.
No prejudice, right? That's very, very important in European politics, to get rid of prejudices. You know, we have no concrete point on the agenda submitted, I understand, no concrete plan or no concrete draft about such a mechanism. What I can tell you is that our number one priority and number one obligation is to ensure the safety of energy supply in Hungary, as I do believe that the other countries do have the same obligation towards their own citizens. So I think it would be great if we could fulfill this obligation first, and not judging and not criticizing others, and not making restrictions or not causing difficulties to others to ensure the safe supply of their own countries. In Hungary, we are doing our best in order to fill our storage capacities and make sure that Hungarian people and the Hungarian economy will have enough gas. And since we have no concrete draft on the agenda in this regard, I don't think I would be in a position to discuss that.
Thank you. Herr Löwenstein, bitte. You get a microphone.
Stefan Löwenstein, Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung. Minister Szijjártó, have you ever thought about putting back the Medal of Friendship that you have been honored with by Russia in last year?
No. Why? Because I received it under peaceful circumstances, and whatever happened among peaceful circumstances have no significance and no meaning while there's war.
Gut, dann einmal nach Bloomberg und dann...
Martin Eder from Bloomberg News. I have a question to Mr. Szijjártó about the nuclear expansion. I have two questions actually, so maybe
very comfortable position.
Yeah, it's your answers actually generate these questions. But I mean,
thank you so much. You're so kind.
No, I can ask.
That's what you call Gastfreundschaft. Yeah. Good.
I can ask a question to both of you.
Great.
After.
Yeah, that would be very nice of you.
So,
finally.
Okay, so the first question on nuclear to Mr. Szijjártó. So yesterday the government announced a plan that it will expand the lifespan of the Paks nuclear plant. You are responsible for speeding up the process of the Paks nuclear plant deal with Russia. Can you explain, are you only now focusing on expanding the lifespan, or are you still expanding the capacity? Has there been any change there? And how does the budget cut to this process, 100 billion forint, affect this process?
These are two parallel procedures. So expanding the lifespan of Paks 1, so the currently operating nuclear power plant, goes parallelly with the construction of the new nuclear power plant, which I try to accelerate as much as I can. We have received a couple of very important permits since I have taken over the issue. And according to the current roadmap, the first concrete must be in dirt by October next year, the latest, which means that the 2030 as a target date for the start of commercial operation is still valid, and I still do believe it's realistic. But parallel to that, we are working on the proposal or the request to the expansion of the lifespan of the currently operating nuclear power plant, because what we understood from the current very turbulent and very complicated global global energy market is that the more energy you can produce out of what you consume, the safer you are. And currently we have 2,000 megawatt performance in nuclear. The two new reactors will perform 2,400 megawatt. So if you add the both, it's 4,400, which will bring us much closer to a self-supplier position when it comes to electricity compared to where we are right now. So we'd like to do both parallelly, and we will spare no effort and no budgetary resource when it comes to the construction of the new nuclear power plant.
May I add just a couple of points? You said concentrate on peace. I obviously fully agree. It's our, as foreign ministers, obviously our hope that there will be room for diplomacy at a certain point in time. But it takes two to tango. And as long as the Russians believe that they can create facts on the ground with brutal military means by bombing and shooting at civilian targets, I believe it's difficult. And last week I was in Turkey, and my Turkish colleague, Mevlüt Çavuşoğlu, said the same thing. It takes two parties to agree to a meaningful negotiation process, and unluckily we're not there yet. And on sanctions, I already said yesterday, we have to be very cautious not to mix up cause and consequence. There's a strong Russian narrative out there in the third world, in Africa, Middle East, and others, that all the problems we see globally are a result of the sanctions, and it's not true. The reason is the Russian aggression. The reason is the Russian war, and yes, the sanctions create pain, economic pain, but we still believe that the pain on the Russian side is far bigger than ours. And it is without alternative. And lastly, because you mentioned the energy decisions, the emergency energy decisions being adopted yesterday in Budapest, just from our point of view, obviously, A, we need solidarity in this issue. B, it's absolutely clear that every country has to take the precautionary measures necessary. And C, this has no direct impact on Austrian gas imports, just to put this fact straight. Thank you.
Thank you. Und eine letzte Frage bitte, die Dame im Kurier.
Thank you, Caroline Ferstel, Kurier. Mr. Schallenberg, have you also heard about this massive wave of illegal migration that is coming to the southern border to Hungary? And Mr. Szijjártó, can you explain a little bit more about this new security guards that you intend to prepare there, and what are their capacities, and what are they going to be allowed to do?
Well, the question whether I've heard about it, I don't have to listen to partners. We have the situation in Austria already. The numbers are exploding, and then we have a huge increase. And we have a situation where we have to say that most probably Moscow is in an extremely cynical way by holding back the grains and oil seeds of Ukraine, counting on the fact of creating a massive global migration crisis, putting Europe under strain. And this is a reality. And Central Europe, as always, as has been the case in 2015, will be the most affected region. And Austria, after Cyprus, is again #2 in the European Union per capita in having asylum seekers and asylum procedures. So this is not a theoretical debate. This is not something we have to look to Hungary, Serbia, or any other country, or Italy. It's a situation which is here, real and now. And the numbers still speak very clearly. Austria still has per capita many timefolds asylum numbers than, for instance, Italy or Greece, but we are in the middle of the Schengen area, not a bordering country.
Did I understand correctly, sorry, about the special gas purchase we make? All right. Okay, so the government has made a decision that we will buy additional volumes of gas on top of the quantity which has been set out in our long-term contracts. We have 2 long-term contracts, one with Gazprom and one with Shell. And on top of those quantities, we will now buy around an additional of 700 million cubic meters of gas, because this is the principal maximum we can store in our warehouses by the start of the heating season. We have more capacities in the warehouses, but what matters is the ingoing and outgoing capacity, which is a kind of limit as well. So 700 million cubic meters of gas, this is the goal of ours to be bought. We have started the commercial negotiations already, both geographic directions. The government has put together the financial precondition for that. So now the question is whether there is enough additional volume on the market or not. That's the major question. It's not a question of money for us because it's a strategic issue of security. The question whether we or anyone can find such an additional volume on the international market. We do our best. Negotiations have been started the day before yesterday, and I hope that we will be successful.
Thank you very much, ministers. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Vielen Dank.